planks nailed onto the trees so that they could like climb up into them and stuff. Like there was just always like new stuff to explore back there, and we just, oh my god, we would have a blast. And we would sometimes do this thing that we were going for a picnic. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my live stream. I am Alice of KHR Arts, and tonight we are drawing. Yay! Oh my god, y'all, it has been a hot minute since we had one of our live drawing sessions. Let's get this party started. Yes. All right, y'all. Oh, look at how gorgeous this is. I kind of forgot what we were drawing, to be perfectly honest. Like I pulled this file up and I was like, whoa, this is what we were working on. It's so cute. It's gorgeous. And I remember this, our little lamb tree. So I did figure out that's what it's called. It's called a lamb tree. And I actually really like what's going on here with it being like see-through into the background like that. Keep it like that. I think it's cute. But I realized that we haven't finished coloring in the tree or his hooves. There's still a lot of work to be done in this drawing, y'all. So I am really excited to get back to this, and maybe we'll finish tonight. Let's see. Okay, so let's color in our little satyr friend's feetsies here. Oh, we don't even have the line art apparently, do we? Oh, no, that's the baseline art. Okay. So we don't even have the line art going on. Oh my god. My line art is huge from the last thing that I was working on. Let's see, is this? Nope, that is the right size. Perfect. As you all know, I am super crazy busy just all the time. And one of the biggest things that I have been busy with as of late is my 6th novel, Succumb to Darkness. I've been really working hard on that, and I am excited to announce that I only have 3.5 more chapters to write for that, y'all. So proud of that. It's been a lot of work, but it's gonna be so worth it. And then, of course, like it's not done, once I finish writing it, then the editing process begins. But finishing that big step is gonna be really satisfying. So I'm really looking forward to moving on to the editing process. So Succumb to Darkness is a dark fantasy novel about vampires, but what makes it different is that it's set in 19th century France, which is about when the French Revolution happened, and that is on purpose. So it is not a like historical fiction or like speculative fiction, like historical fiction or anything like that. It does have parallels to the French Revolution, hence, why I set it during that time period and all that. And it's supposed to be kind of like a comparison of the French nobility, sucking the peasants dry, so to speak. So I have it as kind of literal with them being vampires. So that's the whole idea with that story. And on top of it, I also have the fantastical twist where one of the main characters, her name is Evan Angela, and she's kind of like the main character. There's 3 main characters, Evan Angela, Amishmen, and Verso. But the story, follows Evan Angela. And she is actually a fallen angel. And I'm gonna fix that. I don't know what's going on with this. It's weird highlighty lines going on. But yeah, so she turns into a vampire because she's actually an angel who fell from heaven. She is punished for her vanity, so that is why she becomes a vampire, so that she has to spend eternity not being able to see her own reflection. So that's where the story starts, where she is falling from grace, falling from heaven, and she has to like literally from minute 1 figure out how to now live her life as a vampire. It's a really cute story. I'm really excited to share it with y'all. I'm working so hard to get it done and, make sure that it is the best it can be. I started writing it when I was in high school, actually, and because I'm much older than I look. This was around like, I want to say about like 2005, 2006 is when I first wrote the story. And since then, it's been through some major rewrites, of course. And yeah, just, making the story just make more sense, make it a lot better, all that jazz, because that was literally like what, like 15 years ago, I think. I can't do math, but that sounds about right to me. Yeah, that's a long time. And, it's not like I've been working on it actively for that long. It's one of my stories that has, sat in a drawer, so to speak, for a very, very long time. And I've just, I recently this year pulled it out and decided to start working on it again, and I've had the luck of a publisher is interested in it. So that's why we're on a deadline, is to get that passed off to the publisher. So I'm really, really excited about that, y'all. It'll be the first novel. Well, I don't think, even if they pick it up, I don't think it'll be published this year. I don't think it'll be published in 2021, just because the whole publishing process takes a long time. So I'm guessing probably 2022, but we'll see what happens. In the meantime, that is my main project that I have been hard at work on, as well as I am working on the painting commission. It's taking a lot longer than I thought it would, but I want to take my time on it and make sure that it's done right. But I'm having a lot of fun. It's been a while since I painted, so like, actual like, paint on a canvas. So that's a really enjoyable, relaxing process for me. It's like, it's very meditative. It's just me and the paint and the canvas. And I'm a very like tight control painter. Like, I paint with very small paintbrushes, even though this canvas that I'm working on is like the size of, I would say, like a large end table. Like, it's about 3 feet by 2 feet, something like that, I think. But yeah, it's a rather large canvas, but I still use really small paintbrushes because I'm just, in all areas of my life, I am Captain Control Freak, and painting is no exception. Like, I know that there's a lot of people who have fun with abstract art and with abstract techniques that involve like being very loose with your paint. So, the kind of people who like, literally will like throw paint onto their canvas, or they'll take the paintbrush and go like, like flick it on the canvas and, all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, that's not me. That's not me. Every single brush stroke must be precisely placed. That is the life I live, y'all. It is just like, I heard a quote today that I feel like just summed me up perfectly. One of the Minecraft YouTubers that I like to watch, his name is Fwip, and he was like battling some blazes, and he said, "We're just living on the edge of anxiety here." And I'm like, that is a mood. That is a mood I live basically every day of my life. That is me in a nutshell right there, is I just live on the edge of anxiety. Just everything is just everything in my life is like that. But it's okay. I'm just a wee bit crazy. I'm manageable crazy. Yeah, I was actually talking about that with my parents the other day, that it's like, oh gee, I wonder where I get this Captain Control Freakness from. It's 100% from them, y'all. My parents are both Captain Control Freak in different ways, and it's really, really hilarious to see it sometimes and be like, oh, that's where the crazy comes from. But that's also what I love about art, is that there's so many different ways to create, and there is no wrong way. That, there's so many people that do ultra high controlled art the way that I do, and they make incredibly beautiful things. And then there's those people where they're just like throwing paint everywhere and it's a giant mess and it's chaotic and crazy, and then they zoom out and the canvas is just like a freaking masterpiece, and you're just like, how did you do that? Just amazing. I wish I could loosen up and just like throw some paint at a canvas, but even just thinking about that makes me anxious. Like, no, that would make such a big mess, and what would it even look like? And like, the closest I think I came from ever like painting in a chaotic manner was when I was in high school, and I think it was my senior year. and we had to do a still life, which is where, the whole like they set up like a bowl of fruit and flowers and all that kind of crap. And then you like paint that, it's super boring. I'm sorry. For those of y'all who like still lives, like no shade to you. I just personally hate them with a passion and I think they're super boring. And I had to do so many still lifes in high school and then I had to do more when I was in college and I was just like, if I never have to do another still life ever again, that will be okay with me. But we had to do another still life and by that time I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to anymore. You cannot make me. And the worst part was they were like, you have to make your own still life. So I had to like bring a bunch of crap to school that I had to like schlep back and forth to the art room every day and like set up again to paint it. And like, there were requirements on like how many pieces at the very least and like, what kind of stuff and all that and blah, blah, blah. And I just was so annoyed at that point in high school that I was just like on the train of if I don't want to do a thing, I'm just not going to do a thing. And the other requirement that I really hated about the assignment was that it was like canvas board. So it was like a wooden board and they had put gesso over it. And gesso is the stuff that makes canvas paintable. So canvas is actually like the actual fabric canvas, like a canvas tent, like that sort of fabric stretched over a wooden frame. And then what makes you able to paint on it without it like, soaking through, because I'm sure if you like painted on a tent, it would soak through the fabric. So what makes it not do that is there's this material called gesso. And traditionally you had to treat your canvas. You had to like paint over it with gesso and we had to learn how to do that too. I'm never going to have to gesso anything. I mean, knock on wood. I don't ever want to gesso something because it's complicated and horrible and I'll just buy canvases. Thank you very much. But yeah, so that material, the gesso, like the kind of scratchy stuff that gives canvas paintings their texture, that's what gesso is. So they had put that on like a wooden board. So it was very flat and it had like no give. And I just hated everything about it. I literally hated everything about this assignment, y'all. Like it was like if you just combine all the things that I hate the most about art, like that was it. Just all in one assignment. And on top of it, we were not allowed to use paintbrushes, which, Captain Control Freak me was just about to have an aneurysm hearing that. I'm like, you're taking my paintbrushes away. And I'm sure some of you are like, how are you supposed to paint without paintbrushes? So instead, we had to learn a technique. I don't remember what it's actually called, but you're supposed to use this thing called a Paletti knife. And I'm sure that y'all have probably seen artists use them before. It basically looks like a cake knife, like, those little like serving triangle-y knives that you use that after you cut the cake, you slide the little triangle under the cake slice to pick it up all nice. A Paletti knife looks like that, except for, how the handle like dips down so that there's room to like boop the cake. That's like, there's very little boop. It's, very close to the handle. And so you have to like basically scoop the paint onto the Paletti knife and then like slap it onto the canvas and then you just like smear it around and that's how you paint with it. And we had to use oil paint because traditionally you can't use acrylic paint with a Paletti knife because it dries too fast. I mean, you can, it's art. There's technically no rules. You can paint with whatever tools you want, paint with whatever paint you want. It doesn't matter. It's just traditionally you're supposed to use oil so that it doesn't dry too fast and that you can like sit there and, smear it around and blend and, all that stuff with the Paletti knife. That's the point of it. And so it's supposed to create this like really chunky texture. You're basically like, piling on a lot of paint on the canvas. That's, kind of the whole point of the assignment. So because I hated literally everything about this, it's like you're taking away my control, you're taking away my paintbrushes, you're making me paint a stupid still life that I, on top of everything else, have to cart back and forth from school. Oh my God. This assignment, y'all, just everything about it. So I decided for myself that what I was going to do to fix their wagon, then I'm like, I'll show you. So very rebellious in high school if that wasn't, abundantly obvious by my adult weirdo-ness. I've toned it down considerably as I've gotten older. So you can imagine how just off the charts it was when I was a kid. I decided that because at like art museums and stuff, you're not allowed to touch the paintings for, lots of obvious reasons. But I remember that there were certain paintings that I had seen at museums that, like, oh my God, if you were allowed to touch anything, I wanted to touch those. And they were always these paintings that were really, really, really super chunky. Like they had the like super hardcore textured paint going on where it just had like gobs and gobs of huge, crusty paint going on. Like just, oh, I just wanted to just, like all the texture, just, oh, I wanted to touch it. So I was like, you know what? That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to satisfy my sensory desire to be able to touch one of those paintings whenever I want. And I still have that painting. I still have it. It's in storage. And y'all, every time I pull that painting out, oh, I enjoy it. I just sit there and I'm just like, texture. I don't know, this probably sounds like completely off the wall crazy. But like trust me, it's super satisfying. It is. Just trust me on that. It's just, oh, it's so good. So that's what I decided to do was I'm like, screw it. I don't care how bad the painting looks. And trust me, it looks really bad. Like it looks like a little kid painted it in terms of technique. Like it looks really terrible. And I just didn't care. Because I was like, well, I don't really have a lot of control in this medium in the first place. And if I try to be Captain Control Freak with it, I'm just going to get angry because I'm just not good at being all like, go with the flow, smeary smear, all that. And like there were other people in the class that they made beautiful paintings and it was amazing, but that's not me. So I just made the chunkiest painting that I could. I just slopped on so much paint, y'all. Like we're talking, I went through entire like tubes of paint. How much paint I put on this wooden canvas. Like I just went for it. And I remember while I was at my desk and I'm just having a ball, just like, just smearing all the paint on there. And like I was purposely swirling it almost the way that you do those little rosettes, like when you're like piping rosettes. Like I was kind of like doing that, like making all sorts of like swirly patterns and stuff just to make even like more textures. But yeah, so I'm like sitting there making these like, little florets on my canvas, just all of the smearing and all of the paint, and it's a giant mess. And one of the big things was like the older that I got in high school, the less I cared about what anyone else thought about me. Like basically I went full goth by my sophomore year. Like that's how quickly it took that I was just like, yep, we're over this whole caring about what other people think thing. It's like, that is overrated. We're just gonna be crazy and weird. It's fine. And most days after my art classes, I was just covered in paint, just all the time. I just was a mess and I didn't care. I was having the best time. And I just remember one of those days when I was working on that painting, my art teacher, she would like, walk around the classroom just to see what people were doing and see if they like needed any help or, any advice or whatever. And she leaned over my shoulder and I was one of the ones that she like most of the time didn't have to worry about. I was very much, content to just do my own thing and follow directions and, all that. But with this, I was just done caring about the directions. I was just like, I'm fed up with still lifes. And she leaned over my shoulder and she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm painting. She's like, I can see that, but yeah, your form is lacking. I'm like, yep. She's like, okay. Like she didn't know what to say to that because by that time it was also my senior year, so it was also like senior year no one cares, like the teachers don't care, the students don't care, like it's your senior year, it's just nobody cares. And then I decided to take my rebellion a step further, and I had realized a little too late that my still life that I had put together had no red in it, just horrifying. And for those of y'all that don't know, it's not my favorite color. Pink is my favorite color, but I have synesthesia where I can taste colors, and shades of red are my favorite colors in terms of my synesthesia. They taste the best. So I use a lot of red in my art. and actually my writing too for that reason, because I also taste words, and words that are colors taste the same as the colors. So like the word like crimson tastes the same as if I see the color crimson. And so I just decided to put red in my still life, even though there was no red in, the actual physical still life. I just decided to put it in my painting because I was like, I want to enjoy some red. I remember the next day, my teacher came over and she saw me smearing some red, and she's like, "Why are you doing that?" And I'm like, "I like red." And she's like, "I know you like red," because by then everyone in the entire class knew that I just like had a really weird obsession with the color red, that just me and red had a good time every time. She was like, "I know you like red, but there's no red in your still life. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "It needed some red." And she's like, "Okay." Like at that point, she'd like none of the teachers like tried to argue with me like over anything. They were just like so over trying to tell me what to do that they were just like, "Okay, you're the weird kid, and unfortunately, you're also incredibly smart, so we can't do anything about you. We're just gonna ignore your shenanigans. It's fine." Epic tight pants. At least she didn't tell you no. I always tell the kids in my room there's no wrong way to do art. I love that. I was just saying that earlier, that like there is technically no wrong way to do art. It was my high school had like a very advanced art program, so the assignments that we did like were very much about different techniques and exploring different mediums and stuff like that, and I just really hated this particular assignment, so I was just being as contrary and difficult as possible. And also, like I said, it was my senior year, so by then I was just like extra fed up with school in general. But yeah, like, there's no wrong way to do art. It was just more so about, each assignment was about exploring specific techniques. So that's kind of why there was like a right and a wrong way to do it. It was more so that it was like trying to teach us specific stuff. And that's kind of why my teacher didn't really argue with me, was because I was doing the assignments. Like the point of it, we were learning how to use Paletti knives and on a, board with oil paint. That was kind of the point. And I was doing that. I just hated doing it. So I was just doing it my own way. And she was just like, "Okay, whatever." Yeah, I was very much like, my teachers either really liked me or they absolutely hated me. I was very much that kid in high school. I was also kind of that kid in college too, but for different reasons. But I'm very lucky that my high school had like a very advanced art program, because I know a lot of schools back then did not have them. And I know that a lot of school, like, there's even fewer schools today that have, art, not even art programs, but just art classes in general, just because that's, one of the first things that usually gets cut. So I'm really grateful that I was able to have that educational foundation, because I mean, for those of y'all that, tuned in late, like, didn't see the first shot, let me pull it up again so y'all can see it. This is what we're working on right now. We're working on this fantasy forest and this gorgeous tree here. So I would not be the artist I am today if it weren't for learning all of those like base techniques in high school. Because by the time that I got to college and I was doing the like intro art classes, the intro level art classes in college, I was like worlds away ahead of everybody else because of the education that I had received. So I definitely had a very accelerated education, even if I was a little about it. So this is a looser drawing. I know, le gasp, me, the control freak. Loose? What? And it's a blending technique that I do where we have line art, but everything isn't enclosed. And I do that so that we can have some like blending points between the different areas, which is why I'm manually coloring this right now, because if I were to try to select this fill area, it's going to like select everything, and we don't need like all the grass to turn the same brown as the tree, so that we can blend it into the grass around the roots. So it's a little more effort, but it's hopefully anyway going to be worth it. We do, yes. All right, we are all finished with coloring everything in because I've also decided to keep this like cool highlighting around the sheep, which was originally unintentional, but we're going with it. I really like it. We're going with it. Got our color line art and we are going to make some new layers. Our shading layer, shading layer. Oh no. That is on the wrong layer. Oh, this happens sometimes. I put the things on the wrong layer and then it's a problem. Thankfully this one is pretty easy to fix, so it's okay. Okay, we're just gonna go with good old pencil. I am liking this very much. We're just gonna loosely scribble this in because we're coloring in a tree. And we're going to kind of like color over some of these branches now too. So it's not going to be like this perfecty behind the branches. We're going to go over it a little bit too. This is just the first pass, so to speak. Apparently her eyes are not colored in. That's a problem. I don't know what color I want her eyes to be. They should be green. Ooh, how about this green? That's a nice green. That's what color her eyes will be. That's what I've decided. I am bestowing upon you these pretty green eyes. Oh my god, there's like so much that's not colored in on her. Oh my goodness, this is a problem. What was I doing? Was I just like asleep at the wheel while drawing this last time we were here? What is this? Who authorized this? Oh my god, this is just so not colored in. Why? Why? Okay, I know part of it is because she's like melting into the tree, so we have some like blendy blend going on with that, but this is what's fun about leaves. They're just very scribbly. There's no wrong way to do leaves. You just scribble and it's fine. It's leaves. Just ta-da, leaves, yay. In real life, trees aren't just like, all one blob. They have like little like spaces in between the leaves. All right, so we've got some good texture going, but I feel like it's a little sparse, so we're gonna beef it up. Beef this tree up, y'all. And I know it's looking like flat, like that's okay, because we're gonna add in more colors to like bring in the shading here, so don't you worry about that. All right, this tree is looking way more beefy. But I think we need to like close this in because it's making it look like there's like no leaves. Oh, that's so much better. All right, we're gonna fill that in. All right, this tree is looking nice and beefy. Just gonna do this here. So this is like the trade-off with digital versus traditional art in that I can like work on multiple layers and I can like use the undo button and delete and all that kind of stuff if I don't like something. But with painting, like actual physical painting, I actually paint faster than what I can do with these digital drawings. It's just, I don't know, it's just a quicker process with the way that I can blend things and just get the color onto the canvas and stuff. So that's kind of the trade-off, but you have to also really plan it out, really know what you want to do, be super careful because there is no undo button. Once you put it on the canvas, it's there forever. I mean, there's like some techniques you can use to like fix stuff and whatever, but it's not the same as erasing something or an undo button. And plus, like even with drawings, using an eraser, that's not even truly erasing because then you're changing the texture of the paper. So you're like messing with the integrity of the paper and it's never going to be the same. So, there isn't even like real erasing. Do I want the tree to go on top of the lamb? Oh, that is so cute. Yes, we do. We do want the tree to go on top of the lamb. Ah, I love this lamb. Oh my god. Okay, yes. Adorable. Adorable. Yes. All right, we're going to have a little bit of the branches come over our nymph friend here because I just think that would be really cute. I just want to have just a wee bit, and we're gonna have her because she's like one with the tree. As you can see, this is some of the blendy blend we're gonna be doing. Is we're gonna have it like under her hair, and we're just gonna bring it in here. Tree. Let's see what this looks like. It's looking a little weird. There, that's better. Oh, I like that. I like that very much. Creating depth. Let's blend her into the tree here. See how this looks. I have it on a different layer, so if I hate it, I can just erase it. Well, we'll see how this looks. Oh, I'm liking that. I'm liking that very much. It looks a little bit awkward close up, but far away it makes sense. And that's usually how stuff is with detailed drawings. Like this is up close, it just looks like a crazy mess. And then you zoom out and you're like, oh, amazing. So I unfortunately had the very bad luck of when I was in elementary school that like basically as soon as I would like make friends, like, you know, not just like, oh, little kid make friends, like, you know, like this is my friend. Like I go over to their house and I hang out with them all the time. Like, you know, a really, really like, you know, close, like best friend sort of friend. They would move away, you know, not because of me, not because of me. It was just literal coincidence. I am like, I don't know, like if real life had D&D stats, you know how in D&D you have the like little luck stat? Mine would be like -5. I am a very unlucky person, unfortunately. If it can happen to me, it'll happen to me and it'll happen in a spectacular WTF fashion, basically. And one of the friends that I had when I was in elementary school was a girl named, and to this day was one of my favorite friends that I had as a child. And it makes me very, very sad that I lost her as a friend, that she moved away. But I'm very grateful for the time that I had her for. And what was so special about her was she was one of the few friends that I had as a child that was just as imaginative as me. That it was a very rare thing for me to find that, because you know, I've always been like this, just like always drawing and writing stories and just, you know, creating things. Like when I was a little kid, I literally lived in a world of like my own making, you know, just like, you know, in my imagination. Like I did not spend a whole lot of time in reality as a child. And, you know, finding another kid that was like me was, you know, really amazing. And to give you an idea of what that means, so when we all would go out to play at recess, all of the other little kids at school really, really, really wanted to play with the both of us. Not because of like, you know, those like, oh, you're popular sort of qualities, you know, like, you know, popular kids or whatever. It was because we made up the best games for everybody to play and everybody wanted to play them. And one of the games that I still remember, I don't remember what it's called, but it was basically where we pretended that the playground was like a big dungeon that we had to escape from. And this was back when, you know, we were allowed to play on like super dangerous, you know, by today's standards, they really weren't that dangerous, but super dangerous playgrounds. It was one of those really, really big playgrounds where everything was made out of steel. And, you know, it was like really, really high. Like our monkey bars were like 6 feet high. And, you know, we had huge slides and, you know, those huge platforms and stuff. And the ground was pea gravel. And it was like a big pea gravel pit. So it was like, you know, these big wooden boards and then this like pool of pea gravel. And then, you know, the playground was in it. And you had to basically like jump down into, you know, the like pit to get to the playground, you know, and there's just fields, like big grass fields, like all around the playground. Like that was the playground at my school when I was growing up. Lots of scraped knees, you know, lots of falling off of stuff, all that jazz. And so because it was such a big playgrounds, like, you know, the actual like structure itself, you could actually, you know, as a little kid, you know, we were all probably, I don't know, like around like 3 feet tall, you know, we're all like little kids. We could all comfortably like run around underneath like the platforms of the playground. So like, you know, you would like run upstairs to like get to slides in different parts of the playground. So like running underneath all that stuff, we could do that without having to like duck our heads most of the time. And it was also really dark under there. So we would pretend that that area was like a dungeon and we were all trapped and we had to escape, you know, the dungeon. And oh, wait. Oh, this is back before they had the pea gravel and they had wood chips. Well, I remember that. That was even worse than the pea gravel. And they had wood chips and everybody would get splinters. Oh my God, I remember that. So this is back when they had wood chips. we would tell them like, okay, you have to find the right key. So they would have to hunt around in these wood chips and then, return to us and be like, is this the right key? Is this the right key? And we would tell them yes or no. And, it wasn't this game of, oh, we're just going to, keep like, screwing around with them. Like it was, we literally went and we picked out, this is the wood chip. It's the key. And then we're like, we're going to put it right there. So there was an actual specific wood chip that we designated as like the key, which, is craziness. But yeah, that's just, how we played, and everybody loved it. And, we did crazy stuff like that. And another game that we played, I don't really remember this game as well as I remember that game. I don't really remember what the purpose of this game was, especially because, we're talking, I was in like first, second grade. Like that's about how old I was. So, whatever, year old that is, that's how old I was. So, I'm trying to remember that. And sorry, my brain died for a sec. There was this like really dangerous part on the property of where our playground was, where there was this like sewer well is the best way I can describe it. It was like this big, it wasn't even concrete. It was like straight up like stone slabs that were like put to like make like kind of like a box, and the opening was only like this big. There was like no way anybody could fit through there, and it was meant to be like a drain off thing for like the water to go into there so it didn't like flood the fields and stuff like that. And right above this box, this like sewer line box, was a really big power line. So it was like one of those big like poles with the power line, like the actual cords, and it actually came down and was like anchored into the ground. So like that like diagonal down into the ground right next to this box thing. And I don't know why, but we like thought it was the coolest thing ever, and that's where we wanted to play. The one place in the whole playground we weren't supposed to play. That's of course where we wanted to play. I don't know what exactly the purpose of the game was that we would play, but we would do something with, we would like throw stuff into this like, sewer thing. And it wasn't like a sewer, like, like sewage sewer. It was just like runoff water, so I'm sure it was like dirty, but it wasn't like disgusting. You know what I mean? It didn't like smell. It just smelled like, like stagnant water basically. But like we like would like throw things in there and like say certain things like magic spells or something. I don't know. It was, I really don't remember what exactly was going on there, but that was like a big thing that we would do is throw things into this giant sewer box right next to the electrical power lines. Cause that's what I did as a child. Like all those boomers that are like, I turned out fine. Like I'm part of that club. I did all sorts of, I probably should have died. Glad I turned out relatively okay. And the teachers would always yell at us. They were like, stop playing over there. And of course we were like, it's fine. I don't know what you're concerned about. And of course now adult me is like, how am I not dead? How am I not dead? Oh my God, y'all. And I loved going over to her house, y'all. Loved it so much. I mean, don't get me wrong. I also loved spending time at my house as a kid. Like, I wasn't the kind of kid where I was like, oh, I want to, like, get away from my house. Like, my house was pretty cool. I mean, it was where all 8 bazillion of my toys lived. So, yeah, my house was, still is pretty snazzy. Sorry, my brain died again because we're doing shading stuff. Okay, but her house was really cool. And I kind of had this realization the other day that I think what started my lifelong passion for Asian culture. And I say Asian because it's like multiple things. It's Japanese, it's Chinese, it's Indian. I really love all that sort of stuff. And over the course of my life, I've done so much research, and all of that. But I really think it started with house because I don't remember what her parents did for a living. I think they like did some sort of like business, or I really don't remember what they did, but they did something that made it so that they like traveled all over the world on a regular basis. Like we're talking like, that's like a Tuesday for them basically. And they had this incredible collection that was just all over their house. They just had all these different curio cabinets full of like just things, and they had all these beautiful paintings on the walls, and they had all these incredible sculptures everywhere, and most of it was from, like, India and China and Japan, everything that was more like the eastern part of the world. Like, whatever their work was, it had to do with all the countries over there. And I remember her mom was really amazing. I don't know why this woman trusted me, but she trusted me where she would sometimes take some of these things like out of the curio cabinets and she would let me hold them and look at them. And I was always super, super careful. Like, let me tell y'all, growing up, I grew up with my grandmother was like our live-in nanny, or she lived with us and she took care of me like 24/7, because my parents at the time when I was a kid were both working business people working like in the downtown Chicago loop. So they were gone like most of the day. And my grandma took care of me. And my grandma had this affinity for crystal. Like, those little like figurines that are like carved out of crystal and stuff. Like, she really loved things like that. And she would regularly take like 3-year-old me to these shops. And she put the fear of God in me where she was like, do not touch anything. Do not breathe on anything. So help me if you break anything. So I was just very much that little kid that was like super well behaved, because I was just like, don't break things, don't touch things. Oh my God. Like, like I was like so well behaved around like breakable stuff, because I had the fear of God in me in terms of that. So I think she somehow knew that, and that's why she would like take things out of the curio cabinet and let me like hold them and look at them and stuff. And I was always super careful because I was just like, oh, magical things. And she would tell me about them. Like, like a person, not like, oh, you're a little kid and like talking down to me. No, she would be like, oh, I'm going to put this teacup in your hand. And oh, by the way, it's from, this part of Japan, and it's from this dynasty, and it's painted with this kind of paint, and blah blah blah, and like all that kind of stuff. Like, she like went into all the detail about it, and I just sat there. I was just like a little sponge. I was like, tell me more about this magic cup. Yes, I want to know. Like, I was like so here for it. So that was kind of like, how your brain just kind of puts memories in deep storage, and every once in a while one of them just pops up for no reason. Like, that just kind of happened for me the other day, where that just kind of clicked, where I was like, that's where it came from. Because everybody's always been like, why the are you so into Asian stuff? Like, when did that start? And I thought it was because when I got a little bit older in elementary school and I was allowed to walk home by myself from school, I would like run home from school to watch Toonami on Cartoon Network and watch like Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z and all the Japanese anime. I thought that's when it started, but it was actually before that. I really think it was mom like showing me all that cool stuff. I really, really think that's where it really started, y'all. Taz, don't breathe, and kid us literally holding our breath. I would just sit there and that started just like, and I could hold my breath for a long time, because like I have always been a swimmer. Like, I started swimming lessons at like 3 years old, so I could hold my breath for like ever. And we'd walk out of the store and she'd be like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong with you? Funny enough though, as careful as I was around expensive breakable stuff, me and my little brother had this terrible track record of we broke a lot of lamps as kids. Ooh, see, this is what happens when we have layers, y'all. Just look at this. These layers are so crunchy. I'm loving it. I am loving this. This is where it starts to get like nice and crunchy. Yes. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Me and my brother were terrible about breaking lamps as kids, to the point where for the longest time, like, my parents actually in recent years got some really nice lamps, because now we're adults and we don't break lamps anymore. But before that, my parents actually gave up and they bought these lamps that were made of wood that were basically indestructible, because they just got so sick of it. But a big part of it was just because my brother and we have a big age gap. We are 7 years apart, and as adults that's not so much of a big deal anymore. But when you're growing up as kids, just to give y'all an idea of how significant of an age gap that is, when I was 14 years old, he was 7. So think about that. Like, you have a young, preteen girl going through the first stages of puberty, and you have a 7-year-old boy who is just like at the height of being the most obnoxious creature on the planet, because that's about the age when little boys are just horrible, just absolutely absolutely just on wheels. And he was. Oh my God, he was. Y'all, he was absolutely on wheels at that age. And we fought a lot. A lot. Like, don't get me wrong, we love each other. And like, I always had his back. Like, it was kind of like in the Rugrats, like Angelica, like she would like pick on the babies, but like if somebody else tried to pick on them, she was like, oh, no. I pick on them, not you. You know, she would like beat up other kids and stuff. Like that was so me. Like I didn't go out of my way to like pick on my brother. I was very much I just wanted to be left alone. And he was the opposite. Like he is just the most social butterfly ever and just needs to just always be around people, and I'm just the opposite. I'm just like, leave me alone. So it was just not a good combo. So we fought a lot because he would just like come in my room and just be obnoxious and run around and bother me, and I'm just like, go away, my angst. All that. And so a lot of our fights turned into literally running around the house in circles with lots of screaming. And for whatever reason, that usually ended up, no matter where the fight started, we would almost always end up on the first floor of the house. And it's one of those styles where it's like a circle. So there's like this wall that goes through kind of like the middle of the first floor that separates the kitchen from everything else. So you can like run a full circle around the whole first floor. You know, you run through the kitchen, you know, run through the good room, run through the foyer, run through the living room, run back to the kitchen. It's like a full circle circuit. Taz has redeemed a stretch, and these are honestly really good for me because I sit in my chair all day. I get really stiff, and on top of that, I have really bad joint problems. So stretching it out is a big help. And we're gonna stretch out our wrists. So when y'all see me doing this weird thing with my wrists, like I'm literally stretching the tendons like in my wrist. Like sometimes when I do this, like I'll do this sometimes, it actually cracks the joints in my wrists. It's really, really gross and it sounds horrific, but it feels really good. So yeah, when we had these fights, we'd like run that circuit around the house. And for some reason, that circuit would include jumping over the furniture. So we would like take this shortcut through when we would go through the living room. We would like basically ninja style jump over one of the couches, and the couches were arranged in kind of a really long L shape. And we would run along that couch and then, you know, run up the L shape to then go all the way around to get into the kitchen. And in between the couches, there was like the, you know, this couch and then this couch. And at the corner where they met, there was an end table with a lamp on top. And we would always smash that lamp on that end table. Just all the time. Oh, my parents got so fed up with that. They were just like, why? Why do you keep breaking our lamps? Why do you hate our lamps so much? I think the funniest instance of that kind of thing was when I was chasing my brother, and he would, you know, sometimes we wouldn't run all through the first floor of the house. Sometimes he would then, you know, try to run for safety to our parents. And even though 90% of the time he started it, I would, you know, of course, be the one to get in trouble because I know better. That whole thing. It was one time my parents were on their balcony in their bedroom, and my brother did not realize that the screened door was shut because he was just crying and just running at full force, and he just ran straight through the screen door. My God, it was so bad. It was so funny. I was laughing so hard, and I got in so much trouble because I was laughing. I was like, oh my God, you took the whole door with you. Oh my God. Our house was crazy growing up. But we are super, super good friends now. I love him to bits. He is so supportive of like all the stuff that I do. And I am so supportive of all the stuff that he does. I am endlessly proud of him, y'all. Like, I'm sure I annoy all y'all with all my shout outs to him and bragging about him. Like, I just genuinely just love my brother. He is a fantastic person, super sweet, kind heart, super talented, hardworking. Like, he's awesome. He's the best. And I truly do feel like the only reason why that we fought a lot when we were kids was just because of that age difference. You know, that was just very hard for us to deal with. And, you know, once we got to be where you know, he was old enough that we could kind of be on the same page and stuff, it just stopped, you know, just like that, basically, because we just had nothing to fight about, where he just learned to like respect my space, and I was finally able to like treat him, you know, like an equal. So, you know, yeah, we just, you know, we have a really good relationship. And even when we were younger, I always looked out for him. I was always there for him. And like whenever I heard, you know, if he was having a hard time with like, you know, some crappy kid at school, I was all ready to roll up to that school and just beat somebody. I was that big sister. I was like, nobody messes with my brother. Yeah, growing up was like really wild, y'all. Like, I feel like my life has always had like stages, you know what I mean? And not like the typical stages that, you know, people have when they're growing up. Like, I feel like I had very defined, like, different sections of my life. And, you know, a big part of that was like, you know, stuff coming to an end and stuff beginning and stuff like that. And a big part of that was also because, like I said earlier, a lot of the kids that I became friends with, they would like then the next year or like a couple years later, they would like move away and stuff. So it's just, you know, I'm just used to there being like a lot of change in my life. So growing up was always kind of crazy for me. This tree is looking awesome, y'all. I am loving this. And this is just the shading. So there's shading and then there's highlights. And I am just really, really loving it so far. And this is what I meant by it's going to be like loose blendy blend. Because as y'all can see, like I don't have any like line art going for the shading. And I don't have any sort of like plan for where I'm putting the shading. I'm just kind of like putting stuff, especially because it's tree leaves. That's kind of how trees are. It's just kind of like you just color over here and over there, blah, 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 and it looks like a tree. It's a very organic thing where it looks, the harder you try to be more precise with shading a tree, the less real it looks, is kind of how it is. So right now what you're seeing, this is literally the most like loose I get with my art. Like I'm still very like controlled, measured, like, okay, I'm going to put this over here and da-da-da. Like it's not just like full on like, da-da-da, you know? So one of the biggest changes growing up for me, like definitely the end of an era, was when my nanny, my grandma, moved out from my parents' house and she moved back to the family farm to help take care of my great grandparents, her parents. That was a really, really tough time in my life for me because my grandma was my whole world, y'all. Like she was literally like, you know, my caregiver. Like she was my nanny, she was my grandma, she was my champion, like she was my everything. So when she moved away, that was really, really hard on me. And because my brother was still like really young and my parents didn't want me to like have to be like responsible for him. So, you know, I didn't have to like watch him and do stuff for him all the time. My dad started working from home and he was lucky enough that his company like let him do that. And still to this day, like he works from home. Like he's never stopped working from home since then. And it was just kind of awkward, that whole like transition of then having one of my parents around as like a traditional parent, of like your parent like actually like telling you what to do and stuff. And by then I was like 12, 13 years old, so good luck telling me what to do. Not really the age of telling a kid what to do. So that was it was a lot of awkwardness. It was a lot of awkwardness. It was a lot of chaos. But yeah, I feel like that was definitely if I had to say like when exactly like my childhood stopped being like, you know, childhood, like, you know, not to sound like super morbid or anything like that, but you know, there is that point when you like stop being a kid and you start being like, you know, an adolescent and, you know, get older and stuff like that. And I feel like that was it for me, was when my nanny moved out and I didn't have her around anymore. I really feel like that was kind of that time for me when, you know, I really like childhood was over and I, you know, started like growing up and stuff. And, you know, I had a lot of other stages in my life. One of the big ones was, as I've talked to y'all before about how I was on swim team for like a huge portion of my life. I did like swimming lessons from when I was 3 years old to when I was about like 8. And then I started swim team when I was like, just barely 9. And I swam all the way up until I was about like 18 or 19 years old. It was like the summer after I graduated high school. And the college that I went to, Columbia, they didn't have sports. Otherwise, I would have swam there in college too, because I was really good. Like, I wasn't like amazing, like crazy good, but I was pretty good. It's mainly also the events that I was good at were not really like the hype events. I was the tank, so I did stuff like, the 200 fly and the mile and stuff. And those weren't like the big like team winner, big hype. Like the sprints, everybody loves watching the sprints. Nobody likes watching somebody spend literally 5 minutes to swim up and down a pool. I mean, I admit it's really not that exciting to watch that either. It's kind of monotonous, but still, that's what I was good at. But yeah, that was also like kind of the end of an era for me too, when I called it, I retired from swim team. And it was basically I aged out, and I was, also moving on with graduating from high school and all that stuff. And what's funny was I felt more like retiring from swim team was a bigger milestone for me than graduating from high school. Like, and I think a big part of that was because by that time I was so fed up and so done with high school and just all the nonsense that I had to put up with that I just didn't care. I was just relieved at that point. Whereas like retiring from swim team and being done with swim team, that was very much like a bittersweet kind of thing for me, that it felt cool to be like, wow, okay, we're closing this chapter of my life, but I also like felt sad. Whereas high school, I was just like, get me out of here. I'm done. Where's college? I'm done. I'm out of here. And I've gone through a lot of other like big, transitions like that in my life too, with modeling. I modeled for like about 5 years, and then I like retired from that. Like, I still do modeling, but it's not like my job anymore. And just that's why I feel sometimes like I feel a lot older than I am, is I feel like I've lived like all these different lifetimes, because I've had all these different like stages of my life where it's like, for this many years I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. And it just, when you lay them all out, like, it's like, wow, I did a lot of stuff. It's just kind of weird. It's kind of weird to think about that sometimes. I had a little bit of an old feeling the other day. I had somebody DM me, and they were asking me for my Discord handle, and I was like, I don't have one. And they like got mad at me and like accused me of lying. They're like, you just don't want to give it to me. And I'm like, no, honey, I literally don't have a Discord. I'm sorry. I really don't, y'all. I don't have a Discord. I know what Discord is. Again, I have no concept of time, but it was very much way before pandemic happened. I think maybe it was like 2018 or something like that. I don't quite remember. Somewhere in there, a very long time ago. I tried out the whole Discord thing because everybody was talking about it. Everybody's like, it's so great, it's so great. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I did, like I used to, oh my God, don't crucify me, had an account on Discord, and I deleted it. I had it for all of like, I think it was like a week or something, and I tried it out and I hated it. Oh my God, I hated it so much. I was like, I hate this. To me, it's a very disorganized, and I'm Captain Control Freak. I live for organization. So any app, or social media platform that's disorganized is an immediate no for me. It's just, sorry, I can't do it. I just can't. And Discord is very disorganized. Like, I feel like it's just like, it's like if you take a forum and then just like shake it all up like a snow globe, and it's just a whole bunch of things just floating everywhere. Like, that's what I feel like it is. I'm just like, I hate this so much. And I also struggle with that kind of socialization. Like, the forum platform of socialization is very hard for me to do. I don't like it. And that's pretty much all Discord is. And I'm like, okay, so it's disorganized. It's a format that I just do not jive with. And then on top of it, like, not to sound like that old fuddy-duddy person, but it's mainly, and maybe it was the Discords that people told me to go be on, I don't know, but it just seems very, very centered around Gen Z. Like, a lot of the people that I was interacting with on there were Gen Z, and it was so hard to keep up with everything, y'all. It was very, very hard to keep up with. Like, the way that Gen Z communicates is very, very different. And it's like, you think like compared like, millennials to boomers is like fast paced, like, holy Gen Z is just like, no. I'm just like, what happened? Like, I'm trying to read a conversation that everybody's having, and it's like I'm still reading, and it's like 5 pages ago, and I have no idea what's going on. I'm lost. I'm just like, I can't keep up with this. I can't do this. It's disorganized. And also, they were using like all kinds of acronyms that I couldn't keep up with, and plus like all the typos combined with the acronyms. Half the words I was like, is this a typo or is this an actual thing? I don't know. I'm like, I can't keep up, and I can't understand anyone, so I'm done. And I was just like, no, thank you. I don't need this app. Thank you very much. Sorry. So that is why I don't have a Discord. I'm very sorry. I'm not going to have one. Deal with it. There's plenty of other places you can talk to me on and find me on, and Discord is just not one of them. All right, so on the left, we've got the shading and the highlights, and on the right, we only have the shading. And I love looking at this because you can really just see what a difference it makes, y'all. It's so wild how the shading process just really makes something look really super three-dimensional. I really, really love this so much. Oh, it looks good, y'all. It looks real good. I'm loving this. I love how this is coming together. I did not color his flute in. Give me not color in stuff. What is up with that? Let's color this in. I was wondering why this was blue. I was like, that doesn't look right. Yeah, I would say Discord, TikTok, and Snap are the 3 social medias that I'm like, I'm glad people have lots of fun on there. Like, yay for you. They're just not for me. I do not care for their formats. They're not for me. If I had to choose, honestly, my favorite social media platform is actually Instagram. I really, really like Instagram. Like, I don't really consider Twitch a social media platform, even though technically it is. Like, Twitch and YouTube, I don't consider like social media, traditional social media, because of the format that they are, because I feel like these are more like creation, style places. Like, I feel like this is more so about like creating and consuming media. It's like a direct link with that. Whereas I feel like other social media platforms are heavily dependent, not just on the content, but also on the like user interaction, if that makes any sense, with, specifically that like, comments and likes and like that whole sort of format, I feel like is more important on other platforms. Whereas on here, it's purely about the creator connecting with their audience. There isn't all that other like and all that stuff getting in the way. It's TV, basically. That's how I see it. Exactly. Like, I feel like Twitch and YouTube are kind of like advanced TV. Like, it's like interactive TV. Because I love Twitch. Like, I really love this platform. Like, I've had such good experience with utilizing it. Like, it is a difficult platform to use. Like, it definitely has a learning curve. But once you like get comfortable with it and figure it out, like, it really offers you a lot. Like, that's part of why it's hard at first, is because there's a lot to it. There's a lot going on, but once you kind of master it, there's a lot you can do with it. And I like that it gives you a lot of reasonable freedom to do what you want to do. And I like that the whole point of it is to directly connect with your audience, especially because I feel like so many social media platforms are just so obsessed now with trying to make ad revenue that they've really destroyed that creator audience relationship, where ads have just kind of like shoved their way in between the two. And as a creator, it's like impossible to reach your audience now unless you're willing to pay out the for expensive ad space. And that sucks because a lot of creators just, myself included, just don't have the money for that. And so, the only people who, and they're not even people, it's, corporations are really the only ones that can afford that kind of ad space. So, it's hard to get your content seen, to have your audience reach you, because you just simply, can't pay to play. And that's why, I really do like Twitch, because they kind of turn that on its head. They make it just way more accessible. It has. Willy Wonka did it first, though. He did. Oh my God, Wonka Vision. Oh, that is too funny. I love a good callback. I remember when I was a kid, I liked the movie Willy Wonka, but I also didn't really understand what was going on. I was just kind of like, bright colors and candy. I'm here for this. I didn't really like pay a lot of attention to like what was actually happening in the story of the movie. I was just kind of like, oh, there's bright flashing colors. Yay. And when I got older and like I like rewatched the original Willy Wonka, I was like, this is kind of disturbing. And like I know it's supposed to be disturbing, but I was just like, whoa, like who let me watch this and why? Oh, but I remember that TV kid. I hated him. Like I hated him the most out of all the kid characters. I don't know why. He just really irritated me. I was just like, can someone please just like shut this kid up? Taz, someone called out that it would be impossible to send tickets around the world and only get white kids. Taz, didn't occur to me till today. Oh, actually, I saw a really good YouTube video that explained why that happened. Now, don't get me wrong, it would be really awesome to see a remake of Willy Wonka with way more diversity, not just in like race, but also in like culture and socioeconomic status. But the main reason that they broke it down in how it worked and why that happened was based actually more so on socioeconomic status, commercial availability, and also like where the Wonka, stuff was like set up. Taz, like I thought it was because the stores were in certain countries. Yeah, so like they tried to make it in both movies, the new one and the old one, that it was like a worldwide thing. Like in the new one, they showed that one scene with the counter clock in Tokyo and all the kids burst through the door to try to show, yeah, it's like a global thing. But it makes sense that like all the kids except for Augustus Gloop, I think they did that just to play on the Austrian stereotype, and that was because that was still very close to the World War II era where it was very in vogue to make fun of Germanic people because, at the time they were like, the enemy. It was, World War II and all that stuff. So that's why, they were like, haha, look at the dumb German kid. But other than that, like all the other kids were from America. And a big part of that is because there's just more commercial availability in the United States than other countries. So yeah, in Japan, you would really only be able to get reasonably Willy Wonka chocolate in Tokyo. And it would probably be only that one store because in Japan, that's actually a big thing. Chocolate is a big thing over there. It's very expensive. It's a very, very expensive export. They just are not in a region where they would be able to grow cocoa beans. And it's just so expensive to ship it over there. So the entire island, all the islands of Japan, there would be only like probably, realistically like one Willy Wonka store. And then if you think about other countries, like there would only be Willy Wonka stores like that in the really commercial heavy areas. And what a lot of people don't realize is that in a lot of other countries, it's not just that there's a lot of like rural areas, like the ratio of like rural to urban areas is so much more vast. It's also they just have a lot more empty space, just like non-livable space, especially in China and Russia. They just have huge parts of their territories that are just not livable. There's like no people there. And then on top of that, there's huge areas that are just so rural that like the idea of them like being able to like go to a mainstream like store, like, if you think of the equivalent, like, going to like a McDonald's or I don't know, Fannie Mae or, something like that, like, some really big like corporate chain or something like that, you're not going to see very many of them. They're going to be in very small, in small supply. Like even in the UK, McDonald's is a really big deal in the UK. And there are certain McDonald's in certain cities in the UK where the line for the drive-through like goes all the way down the block and it like wraps around. It's so long because they just have scarcity where it's like that's like the only McDonald's. Otherwise, they'd have to drive for like hours to get to the next McDonald's. So it's kind of like that. So, we're so used to seeing here in the States, like, there's a McDonald's and a Chipotle and, a Starbucks and all that on like every corner. And other countries just don't have that. So that's the commercial scarcity in the other countries. And then on top of it, socioeconomic status, there's there's far more ability of social economic status in the US, especially back then, because that was like post World War II era where the middle class was a thing. So people had a lot more disposable income to be able to spend on chocolate. Chocolate is not a necessity, it's a luxury, luxury. So there were a lot more people that were able to afford to like go out and buy a candy bar. Whereas if you think about it, like think about how much money, the average person somewhere in like, Africa or India, like, what they make in a month. And I'm pretty sure that they're not about to go, spend that money on like a candy bar, when there's plenty of other, more important stuff that they would want to spend their very small income on. And I imagine that, in those countries, Wonka bars are not going to really fluctuate in price. So, what a Wonka bar, let's just, just to set something, let's just say it's $1, in the States, it's $1. Think about how much $1 is to somebody who lives in like, a really rural area in Africa or one of the really, like lower caste areas of India. Like that's a lot of money. They're not about to buy that. So then that cuts out, all those people. And then in the States, it was also a big socioeconomic thing that it was predominantly white families that made up a lot of the middle class, barring the whole thing that happened with like Black Wall Street and, that whole thing that happened. But they were primarily the ones who had more of the socioeconomic power to be able to buy more of that stuff. And then on top of it, the movie was also showing like the greed of all these people who were like mass buying them. So like kind of like today how we have those people who, like buy all the, all the stuff so that the kids can't have the toys. They can then, scalp it on eBay. So you had a lot of those people, doing the same thing with the Wonka bars. So they're like taking it out of the hands of other people that could have potentially gotten like, maybe like one bar and stuff like that. And I would have to look for the link, but I remember the video I watched like broke it down with like actual like numbers and math and stats, and also based on like the numbers and the math and the stats of like that time period that the movie was based in. And like it was really surprising and sad. Like that was the big thing, is it was really sad that it made sense that, such a high number of the kids, all of them in the movie were white, but that it was such a high probability for them to all be white. And it just showed the racial disparity back then of how hard it was for anybody who wasn't white to be able to participate in something like that, that it would have had to be pure dumb luck. With Charlie, he was the pure dumb luck. And that's why a lot of people have said it would have made way more sense if Charlie was anything but white, to be able to represent that. It would have had to be exactly him, just happened to spend his last, money, his last little birthday Christmas money to get that one Wonka bar, and he just happens to get the golden ticket. That would have been, like the black kid or the Hispanic kid or the Indian kid or, whatever, that should have been what that was. Whereas the other kids, they made sense because Veruca was super rich. So her dad was the scalper, the eBay scalper, just buying all the bars so that she could get the ticket. And then Augustus Gloop was, the gluttony and the overabundance of the ability to be able to buy that much food for your kid to overfeed them. And then the TV kid was the, obsessed with media, obsessed with all the trends and the fact that their family was rich enough to be able to buy all that stuff, buy them a TV, buy the video games, buy the candy, buy all the stuff for them to keep up with all these, honestly meaningless trends and all that. And then I can't remember her name, the blueberry girl. She also made sense that she was the like stage mom, child star, that, I'm going to get my kid out there. I'm going to make my kid famous, that whole thing, and being obsessed with, living vicariously through your kid like that and pushing them so hard. And of course, doing everything that she could to get Blueberry Girl into that contest and stuff, that made sense too, that it was kind of like all of those kids were kind of like the 7 deadly sins of what was wrong with the States, kind of. So that's what I have to say about that. It was a very sad analysis. I learned a lot of things and it made me very sad. But yes, Charlie should have been not white is really the crux of it. But it did make sense for the other kids why they were white. So yay, sad facts. I just kind of dumped on all of you. I'm sorry. It has. Plus, cocoa originates in some of those places. Why waste money on chocolate when it has other uses? Absolutely. Absolutely. And like a lot of those places, like that's actually a big thing that's going on right now with people boycotting Nestle, is that a lot of the places that produce chocolate utilize slave labor in order to produce the chocolate. So the people that live in that area that produce the chocolate actually can't even afford to buy the chocolate that they actually help produce, which is really sad and ironic and horrible. So that's like a whole other thing too. Taz, Willy Wonka had a few good lessons. He really did. It really did. It's actually like a really deep movie when you like break it down like that and like get past just the like squicky, weird, creepy, disturbing stuff. But yeah, if I find that video, I'll definitely share it with you because it was really enlightening, and not just in the context of Willy Wonka, but I also learned just a lot about, you know, how like socioeconomics work and commercial scarcity and like all that stuff from that video. Like I really got a lot out of it. And, you know, like I knew about like, you know, food deserts and, you know, food scarcity and socioeconomics and like all that stuff, but just it was very in depth. I learned a lot of stuff I didn't know before. So, you know, really good stuff. It has like, I wanted those kids to get their karma. It was satisfying. Exactly. And that's kind of the point of it, is that they wanted them to be horrible, you know, that they were supposed to be horrible and that you wanted bad things to happen to them. You know, you wanted them to get their literal just desserts in the case of, you know, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is hilarious. I'm pretty sure that was very purposeful with that. But in that aspect too, I'm very disappointed that it was only the kids that got punished and not their parents, because that's also a big problem. And I think part of that is also just because of the attitudes toward children back then and all that. But that a lot of times that kids are the ones who usually get punished for their bad upbringing, and that the parents don't really get any consequences for that. And I think that there should really be consequences, that it's like, if you're being a bad parent and raising kid, like you should have bad stuff happen to you too. Like you should be punished for raising your crappy kid. Taz says yes. Aw, thank you, dear. I'm just like, I'm all revved up on an info dump here, y'all. I'm just like, things. I'm excited. I'm here for it. But yeah, I digress. Yeah, I don't know. I get really fascinated by that kind of stuff. I'm a very global person in that I want very much to, and I've always been this way, like even when I was a little kid, like it always interested me. I want very much to understand how other people live and how like other parts of the world work. You know, like what is their government like? What is their culture like? You know, what is their economy like? Like I don't know. I just get a lot out of learning that kind of stuff. I just find it fascinating. Taz, well, actually, the parents had to go home with weird looking kids. No parent likes to be embarrassed by their kids. No parent likes shame. That is true. I didn't think of that. Perhaps that is a good punishment for them, that now they have to deal with their kids look as horrible on the outside as they are on the inside for all to see. Oh, that is some good parent punishment right there. Look at you, girl. Look at you getting it. Look at you peeling back the layers of that movie. I love it. I'm here for it. We are learning together, y'all. This is awesome. Yes, in depth here. In depth, like cinema analysis going on. We are coloring. I will zoom out for those of y'all who are just tuning in now. This is the drawing we are working on. It's a lovely fantasy forest scene here, and I took a break from shading the tree because I just realized that I forgot to color this flute. So that's what we're doing. That is what we are doing right now, and we're almost done. Yay! Because you know me, I need 13,000 little details in my drawings, and then I regret them as I have to shade them and color them and all that. And then I'm like, why did I do this? And then it looks grand once it's done, and I'm like, oh, this is why I did it. I'm very much like, I don't know why, but my favorite way to enjoy TV is to yell at the TV. I'm very much that person where it's like, I know the people in the TV can't hear me, but I like yelling at them. I am that person. I like having a conversation with the TV. I don't know why. But my parents are very into watching HD TV, especially those shows like Apartment Hunters and all that, where like the people are looking at houses and stuff. And I just love yelling at the people. I'm just like, why are you being so stupid? Dismantling movies and, you know, going way too in depth with them is so up my alley. I'm just so here for stuff like that. I'm just like, yes. And like, I'm also here for, enjoying stuff just for what it is. Like, I don't need to like tear everything apart and then just make it not even like fun anymore. But I am always down for a good analysis. Okay, we colored in the flute. It makes more sense now. More sense making. So we can continue coloring our tree. Coloring, coloring. Growing up as a kid, I had very few friends. And as I said earlier, a big part of the reason why is because there just were not a lot of kids my age in the neighborhood. There just weren't really other kids my age in the neighborhood for me to be able to like hang out with and make friends with and stuff. The main like other girl in the neighborhood that I hung out with, her name was, and the only problem was because of the way that property lines were, we went to different schools based on like the property lines. So we did not go to the same school, which, made things more difficult for me with, making friends and stuff like that. But outside of school, we hung out together a lot, especially during the summer because she was also on swim team. But I remember a big thing that we would do when we were growing up is this neighborhood is very like there's lots of woods. Like before it became like suburbs, like it was just a giant forest. It was just trees everywhere. And then they started like building houses. And what I really love about this neighborhood is that they are very big on preserving the trees. So there's still like trees everywhere, but there's also, like all the houses and shops and stuff. But they're very big about like all the streets are lined with tons of trees. Like we have like a big old oak tree that's like probably like, 100, 200 years old on the block. Like it's just this massive behemoth tree. And like the very idea of somebody thinking that they're going to chop it down, I'm pretty sure everyone in the neighborhood would just go like beat the out of them, honestly. But yeah, so there's like tons and tons of trees everywhere. And there's this particular area of the neighborhood that all of the kids referred to as the creek. And it's because there's this like, you can't even really like call it a creek even. It's this teeny tiny little piddly like water river creek thing that like goes through a bunch of the parts of the neighborhood. Like it kind of like continues through, but it'll be like sporadic. Like it'll be like, a sizable creek and then, down to like a little trickle and then, go out again and stuff. And a big part of it is just because of the house development stuff is really what that is. But the creek is the section of the creek that is the biggest part of it. And there's just like tons and tons of trees and there's like no houses. It's just this really, really big wooded area. And that's a big thing about this area too, is there are a lot of areas that are just like, we don't touch this. We don't build things here. Like there's a big like wetland marsh that's like a protected area. And then like the creek is another one of those areas where there's just nothing over there. It's just like breeze and like the trees and brush and stuff. And as an adult, I went back there to go look at it and it's so overgrown. You need a machete to get in there, honestly. Like there's no physical way to get in there anymore. But when I was younger, it wasn't so overgrown. And like there were like these big like dirt jumps that like the teenagers created to like, ride their dirt bikes on and stuff. And like, they would like go back there to like drink and smoke and whatever. They did that at like night. Like during the day, it was like, the little kids would go back there to like play and like explore and stuff. Like it was this weird respect thing where it was like, once it started to like get kind of like later in the day, we all left. We didn't go there because we knew the teenagers were going to be there and the teenagers didn't bother going there earlier in the day to like bother us. Like it was just a weird mutual respect thing going on. But we used to play in there all the time. And I just remember that. And it was just so fun because it's a very, very big space considering that it's in the middle of a suburbs. It's a very large wooded space. Like it feels almost like, the kind of wooded space you would find in a very like farm rural area. Like it's kind of like that, but it's like in the middle of a suburbs. It's wild. And just with the constant like changing of the terrain because the teenagers would like, build ramps for their like dirt bikes and stuff. And at one point there was even like half of a tree house and like little like planks nailed onto the trees so that they could like climb up into them and stuff. Like there was just always like new stuff to explore back there. And we just, oh my God, we would have a blast. And we would sometimes do this thing that we were going for a picnic. And I don't know why, but back then we were very obsessed with the idea of we're going for a picnic. And this was also back when tiny backpacks were a popular thing. So I'm sorry to say, y'all, tiny backpacks are not new. That is definitely a recycled trend. That is from back when I was a kid, where tiny backpacks were just whole thing. They were so exciting. They're so great. We had tiny backpacks, and we would pack our tiny backpacks full of stuff, just random stuff that it was like, we're not talking anything that made any sort of remote sense for going and playing in the middle of the woods. Like, it wasn't like we were like, oh, we're going to pack snacks and a flashlight and, you know, I don't know, whatever survival-y camping sort of stuff. No, it was like, we're going to pack like one Barbie and like some gummy bear snacks and I don't know, just random stuff. We would just pick up random stuff and we're like, we're gonna put it in the backpack. We're going on a picnic. We just liked the idea of packing some random stuff and then we're, you know, going to the woods and just playing. And we called it going on a picnic. It's so funny, y'all. Just, the things you come up with as a kid, it's just like, what on earth was I thinking with that? Like, I don't even know what that was. Taz, right, LOL. Taz, some random rock you found. Exactly, like stuff like that. Like, oh, I need this rock. Like, yes, and in this stick. And oh yeah, and you know, I need this random cup. I absolutely need that for, I don't know why, you know, just stuff like that. It's just so goofy. I definitely was part of the last bit of the millennial generation that was like allowed to play outside, because I was very much that kid where in the summer I just played outside a lot, just by myself, you know, just like going around the neighborhood, no supervision, just you know, doing whatever, riding my bike, riding rollerblades, and nobody worried about it. I mean, that was also when, like, you know, kidnappings were starting to become like a serious thing and parents were like starting to become really concerned about them and stuff. And so my parents like taught me at a young age, like, you know, don't get into a car with a stranger. This is what you should do if something happens, blah, 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 like all that sort of stuff. Like, you know, I got the rundown of all that, but I was still allowed to go run around by myself and just do whatever. Taz, just be home before the streetlights, right? You know, it's like either be home or be at somebody's house. We don't care where you are, just be in a building. Was kind of the thing back then, was, you know, you don't have to come home, but you can't be outside. Those were good times. Those were very good times. All right, y'all. I am loving this tree. Let's take a look at it. Oh, this is looking so good, y'all. It's so cute. So cute. I love it. So pretty. This is turning out so good, y'all. And when I got a bit older, I don't remember how old I was. I think I was maybe like 11 or something. Me and would actually rollerblade all the way to the movies. And we would like, you know, pack shoes in our backpacks so that we could like, you know, go in the movie theater and like watch movies and stuff. And I remember doing that. I felt so grown up. I was very cool. I was like, I rollerbladed to the movies all by myself with my friend. Ugh, I remember doing stuff like that. Just so wild. And a lot of, you know, a lot of stuff I did as a kid, I'm just like, you know, as an adult now, I'm just like, no thank you to being outside. I'm not about that. I am not an outside person anymore. I mean, not that I was a big outside person to begin with. Like, even as a kid, I was not a fan of the whole concept of like camping and stuff like that. I've never really been like thrilled about stuff like that. But even now, as like an adult, the idea of being like, I'm gonna go out into like this woods full of itchy plants and bugs, just no. No, thank you. I'm not interested in that. But when you're a little kid, you know, you don't worry about a lot of that kind of stuff. You just don't care. You're in the moment. You're just doing stuff, having a blast, living your life. Not a care in the world. I had a lot of freedom as a kid. I was pretty much kind of allowed to do whatever I wanted to do, because I didn't really like do anything that I wasn't supposed to do. Like, it didn't occur to me to really do stuff that I wasn't supposed to do. So I was given a lot of freedom as a kid. I was one of those like weird kids where I kind of like, I knew what wasn't good for me, so I just didn't do it, sort of thing, if that makes sense. Like, I was just very good at like making good choices, basically. Like, oh, I just, you know, I shouldn't go to this dangerous place or I shouldn't do this dangerous thing. I just have no interest in doing stuff like that. Just gonna go have a picnic in the woods, whatever that means. And another big thing that I did when I was a little kid, I don't really have an explanation for why I liked doing this. And I think that it just, you know, it really explains on Minecraft my whole obsession with I want to collect all the animals. I don't know what my deal is about liking collecting animals, but I do. But when I was a little kid, my parents' house had these, they're called window wells, where basically they're like windows in the basement The window wells are like windows in a basement. So there's this like little area that's kind of dug out to like, cut out kind of like a little window in the top of, a basement and stuff. And it's basically like a little round metal thing that goes against the side of the building to like hold the dirt in. And then there's like rocks. It's like a very basic thing just so that you can have like some light in the basement, and it's also for like safety purposes and stuff like that. But when I was like, they're like all covered now and like you can't really see them, but when I was a little kid, they were just open. They were just in the yard, and I just somehow was smart enough to just never fall in them. But a lot of frogs would fall in them. And I was just obsessed with, for some reason, every summer I enjoyed fishing all the frogs and toads out of the window wells, and I would just carry them around in like a bucket. And I was just like, these are mine. And then at the end of the day, my nanny would be like, okay, you gotta say bye. Say bye to your pets. Put them in the woods, please. Don't bring them in the house. And then I'd say bye to all my frogs and toads. And then like, a few days later, they'd be back. It was just, I don't know why. I had so much fun doing that. Just, these are my toads in my bucket. Carry them around in the yard. I don't know. I don't know why I enjoyed doing that. I had a lot of fun doing that. I don't know why. Like, I didn't do anything with them. I would just put them in a bucket and just carry them around for no reason. That was just what I did. I'll come to some of the ways I entertained myself as a child. I was a very weird child, which is why I like to joke with my parents. I'm just like, when was I ever normal? Like, what? When did you ever think I was ever going to be like, oh yeah, this one's gonna turn out normal? No. I had zero hope of turning out normal, y'all. I was like 100% weirdo from the get-go, just all of the bizarre, and then nobody restricted any of the weird until I got older, and then they're like, oh no, this has gotten out of hand, and it was too late by then. Poor little kid me also really, really liked picking flowers, but unfortunately me and flowers don't get along. I am severely allergic to pollen, and like I was always just an itchy, sneezy mess playing outside. Just me and plants, just we don't get along, which is a big part of why as an adult I'm not a fan of being outside, because my allergies have unfortunately, as I've gotten older, have just gotten worse. But how my family discovered that me and plants just don't get along, because at first it was just like, oh, just itchy and sneezy. That's fine. That's not a big deal. But then I think it was like 3 when I did this. I was really, really little. But you know how in the really old cartoons, like especially Looney Tunes, when they would go to sniff a flower, they would stick like their whole face in the flower. Like their face would be like literally like this close to the flower. And they would like sniff it. And it was that whole like the anticipation animation where like, it was really exaggerated, where they would like lean all the way back to like smell the flower, and this flower like stretch up all the way up with them. It was just really crazy and ridiculous. For some reason, like 3-year-old me thought that is the appropriate way to smell a flower, is to stick your whole face in it. And so, being the genius I am, I decided to stick my whole face into a daffodil. So like, how they have like that little like cup, that little circular like cup? That's where all the pollen is. And genius 3-year-old me basically stuck my whole nose into that little cup. So then like my face was like touching the flower, like the flower was like on my face. And the next morning when I woke up, I like could not see. And it's because one of my eyes, like the pollen had gotten into one of my eyes and it was swollen shut. And it was like 3 times the size, and it was black. Like it looked like someone had just absolutely walloped me. It was really bad. And I feel like as an adult, I feel so bad for my parents, because I can't imagine what people must have thought looking at me. It was really bad. But it was literally just because I was stupid and stuck my face in a flower. And that was when I then had to take a lot of those like allergen tests where you like go in and they prick your back. And I even had to do the intense one where they like put all like they like numb your arms, like they wrap it in like that cream that like makes you not feel anything, and then they like did shots, like full on syringe shots all in my arms for like allergy testing. Like it was that bad. Like I have allergies that are that bad, y'all. That's why I am not an outdoor pet. I am an indoor pet. I'm not made for outside, literally. Like I will die. That is how I found out the hard way that I'm just not built for being outside. And oh, did I try as a child? I tried so hard to play outside, and outside just did not like me, y'all. It fought back hard. And I have just given up as an adult. I'm like, you win outside. There's plenty of inside for me to do. It's fine. I'm fine. All right, we've got all the lines done. So this is how we are going to transition here, y'all, is drawing live stream time is over. It is 11 o'clock. We had 3 full hours of goodness here. Look at this. Look at how beautiful it is looking, y'all. I am so, so proud of this, and I hope that y'all enjoyed watching. We didn't finish, but it is looking so, so good, so we will definitely continue drawing this next Saturday.